Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I was I saw all the people posting about the snowstorms, talking to my mother, and he's like getting sick of it. I'm like, hey, I'm just here to give them Jimmy Buffett vibes. It's not worth that.
Every time there was like a Margaritaville like event somewhere in Chicago, there'd be like a bunch of Jimmy Buffett like buffs on the CTA, and they would all just be like hammered singing what's his like famous
Margaritaville?
Yeah.
And in Margaritaville. There's a lot more songs, Roman. Cheeseburger in Paradise.
Yeah, there you
go. 5 O'Clock Summer with Alan Robinson, I think. Very awesome song. You know, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's just pretty much.
Yeah.
He goes, you know, yeah, and he's talking about like how he's had like a crap time at his job, and he's like, he's like, I'm taking my lunch break, but I'm not coming back until after 2, and like, you know, he's pretty much saying like he's having a drink. You know, if they call me, I'm already in the boat to Jamaica. You know, stuff like that.
Nice. Is Jimmy Buffett also the guy that does like the got my ass in the water, feet in the sand, not a worry in the world, cold beer in my hand, life is good today. Oh, okay.
Wait, I don't know. I know Zach Brown Band does the song, but I don't know if there's original.
Maybe
I feel like there has to be an original to that song. Not sure. So anyone who can comment on that below, let us know about.
Jimmy Buffett fans are gonna be so upset.
Water, ass in the sand.
Yeah, that's what his toes in the water.
Yeah. You said feet in the water. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
But no, you know what? I woke up today. I found a pair of jeans online, and I think I might standardize in them. I'm a big believer. I know everyone has their pair of jeans. Roman, I know you don't really care too much, but I always found throughout my like adulthood life, American Eagle jeans always last like the longest, and like they're built really well. So I was like, you know what? Let's try it out. I found these like it's like athletic slim, and you know what's nice is they make like a bigger thigh gap area, and it's, you know, slimmer down the legs, and it's like a bigger for your butt. So it's like, you know, they're nice and like fitted, but they're not like overly tight like my skinny jeans that you probably normally see. And because skinny jeans for like us is a lot more tighter than normal people because we don't have like toothpick legs. But yeah, I found them, and I'm wearing them today, but holy cow, man, it's beautiful. It's 73 out, sunny is all day, dude. We're loving it. We're living life. Roman, on the other hand, is not.
No, we're getting by.
Yeah, I heard it's snowing again right now. Is that true?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Some flakes
buddy.
here or there. Yeah.
You need to get your butt to a nice state where it doesn't snow anymore.
I know, I do. Maybe come visit Arizona.
Yes. I actually, we found out we can't. I don't know if I told you or we told the rest of Gainz Nation, but my wife and I and 2 friends, we're gonna hike the whole Grand Canyon, and then I forgot. We all forgot that one of the rims is closed actually, so we can't do the full hike. So we only get to do one side. I think it should be around like 12 to 15 miles still instead of the 26. Kind of bummed about it, but maybe it'll be good to like do it and then do the other side, like, you know, maybe later down the year in like the winter times when it gets cooler again. But that'll be pretty fun.
That'd be really fun. Yeah, heck yeah. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, man. And everything's going well, man. Gainz Nation, 20 boys up to 355 on deadlifts. Roman's benching more than ever. I think Roman's benching 315 for 4 reps. Is that true?
Someday.
How's Roman? Roman, give it before we get into this. I know people are like, dude, these guys got to stop bantering in the beginning. But tell everyone how your bench 4 days a week is going.
4 days a week, yeah, it's going. The thing I'm always thinking about is like trying to manage recovery. So making sure I'm hitting out like my protein targets and I've actually been pretty bad about stretching. So I was talking to Laura about this too. I'm always like the kind of person that I'm like, oh, this like muscle group is like a little tight. Like, let me add this, as opposed to thinking about like, oh, maybe I need to subtract. So I'm always like in the mindset of like adding things. But I do think that I could add more time, like with like active recovery time, and or just like, like a little bit of a warm up, a little bit of like light stretching to like mobilize the area, see if I can increase range of motion, that kind of thing. 'Cause I think I could definitely use it in some areas. I think I get like really tight on the bench when like the lower, maybe like fifth or sixth part of the bench, like right before I like hit my chest.
Is that like your back too, or is it your shoulders?
It could be. I don't know. It doesn't hurt. Yeah. It doesn't hurt, but I definitely can like tell that like I'm starting to get like tighter. Whereas like it was much easier to get into those positions. But part of that is just like the buildup of like fatigue. So next week I'm gonna be traveling. So I'll probably take a deload week just to, for the sake of kind of lowering some of my fatigue.
No, yeah, exactly. We all need it. I mean, like the other weekend, 2 weekends ago, I think, I told you, obviously we went to the zoo, but like, it was nice to go to the zoo and not like have to like hike, because like, on Saturdays we've been going pretty hard on hikes, and like on top of 5 days of working out, you're like, fuck, I'd be like Roman working out 6 days a week over here. But like, the 6 days not really lifting. It's more just, just like hiking, strenuous like hikes. But no, good thing that you brought that up. Honestly, you'd be proud of me, Roman. I've actually been stretching like consistently like every single day.
That's
even
awesome.
if it's in the morning or at night. Or like yesterday, hey, we were in the hot tub and I was like, oh crap, I didn't stretch today, and I stretched in the hot tub.
Nice.
And it's nice to stretch in the hot tub because your muscles are nice and warm.
Yeah.
And it helps you get a little bit further in depth in stretching. So no, everything's been good. I think I've been stressing a lot more of stretching because of the fact that I've been lifting consistently and a lot more like strenuous like workouts. But yeah, man, my shirts are starting not to fit again. I feel like, I don't know about you, but like all my weight goes to my face and my biceps. It's like I hold like fat in my biceps and like in my triceps. Like, I don't know what it is, but like this shirt, when I was in Mexico for the honeymoon in November, like it wasn't this tight, and then now it's like, holy cow, like you could barely put a finger in there.
That's awesome. Nice.
No, it's good. It's good. It's like you, when you fill out, like you get like your shoulders bigger, your arms bigger, your chest and your back, and then like your stomach's like still like pretty, like the shirt's pretty loose and your jeans are still like nice and right in the spots. It's coming together, guys. But anyways, episode 65, if I'm not mistaken. 65?
65, I think. Yeah, 64. 60. Let me see. Do 65. Yeah, wow.
You know what? I need to have my notes put out. But so Roman, what do we talk about? And if you wanted to give a brief description on what we're talking about to get the people started, and then we could kind of go into details of like what the process is, why it's important, all that good stuff.
Sweet. Yeah, that sounds good. So we're going to do a little bit of dive into some science today, folks. We hope you like it. We're definitely going to talk about some science in your face. So we hope you like it. Let us know if this is a format that you enjoy more, and we'll put more research into these types of like sciencey topics. But today we're going to be talking about the theory of muscle action or muscle movement called the sliding filament theory. This is probably like the predominant theory that's used and understood for how muscles move the way they move. So I took this definition from the personal training book that I've studied from for the past few years. I've actually read 2 different editions of the book. So this is the NSCA's Essentials of Personal Training, and the way they define the sliding filament theory is a muscle shortens or lengthens because the actin, which is a protein filament, which is inside of the sarcomere, and myosin filaments slide past each other without filaments themselves changing length. And that aspect of them not changing length is actually an important aspect of the sliding filament theory. And we'll talk a little bit of how the myosin cross bridges essentially grab onto the actin site and slide them down and continue to do so. But yeah, that's pretty much a basic definition that we're working and operating with. So actin and myosin are the two main protein structures inside of a sarcomere.
Oh, are you sorry?
That was just a brief definition. Is there anything that you wanted to add on to that? Sorry.
Yeah. I just don't. I mean, sorry. I heard a motorcycle noise, and I was like, wait, did Roman think I was talking or something? And he stopped to so I get to. But no. I mean, Roman kind of started off us well. So I found out in 1954, A.F. Huxley and R. Niedergerke, they were the first ones to observe this process. Think about relax, contract it, and then Roman. I think it's probably important to go through those steps that you have, and then we could just kind of go. The reason why we talk about it and the reason why it's important, because I don't want to go too much into other detail, because I saw that you got those steps, and we want to kind of go through the process, and then we can kind of talk about layman's terms afterwards, or what we do in the gym and how it affects our gym process.
Yeah. So I went over the so there's 7 steps, or at least the way the NSCA depicts the sliding filament theory, the process of how there's an impulse that's sent down your nerve, and then that essentially releases acetylcholine, which then has the impact of releasing calcium ions, which bind to troponin, and they release the tropomyosin, which is essentially blocking a myosin binding site. So that allows myosin, which because calcium is flooded into the sarcomere through the action of the what is it called? It's essentially an electrical impulse which travels through the T-tubule, and calcium ions essentially moving all throughout there. The myosin has a little binding site where an ATP molecule will bind to it, and ATPase or ATPase is an enzyme which reacts with the ATP, and it breaks ATP into a molecule of ADP and a phosphate molecule, and the breaking of that bond is what releases energy. I believe from a chemical standpoint, Laura has corrected me in the past on this, but I believe the breaking of the bond is what releases the energy that's used to power the myosin filament, which essentially just looks it almost looks like a sperm, to be honest with you, whenever I've seen animations of it.
I was looking at a lot of diagrams this week, and I'm like, it does look kind of like that, but go ahead. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah. So the actin filament sits in the center of this diagram, and the myosin head will attach to the actin filament, and it will use its energized head to move the actin filament along the sarcomere, and then another ATP molecule has to come along and bind back to the myosin head, and the breaking of the ATP molecule into ADP and phosphate is what once again releases the energy to release the myosin head, another ATP molecule, and it jumps back onto the myosin and moves it even further along the sarcomere, and that's what's bringing the sarcomere closer together. And that's the when you see a bicep essentially become smaller and more mound-like, that's essentially what you're seeing on a macroscopic scale. So that was my best attempt at trying to make it as easily digestible as possible.
Yeah, and also too, guys, this is an important process or theory and idea when it comes to lifting, because the fact that This is the process that's going to, make you huge. And then I put comma or small. So if people aren't utilizing this correctly after all of the other stuff behind the scenes, then, you still will be small, AKA small Titus, AKA soy. I mean, forget the soy part. Sorry. That was, but yes. So the idea, so if you think about it, like Roman was saying with like the bicep, now if you take that overall and every muscle group, you're talking about like every time you do an eccentric, concentric movement or moment in the gym. So if you're thinking of like a tricep push down, when you're pressing down and contracting the tricep, that's when they're shortening, that's when they're contracting. And then once you're pulling back up on the eccentric portion, that's when the muscle lengthens and, relaxes. So that's going to be important throughout the whole gym process. And also it's going to be important when you're getting, if your body didn't produce all that energy in the ATP, you wouldn't be able to see gains in the gym too, which is pretty crazy because, it's not like we take advantage of it, but if you look at it like overall, like if no one came up with that, like no one would have any ideas on what would the muscles be actually doing when you're lifting. So I always think that's pretty cool. I know that sounds kind of nerdy, and a lot of people don't even go through this or even know about this theory. So it's pretty cool that Roman brought this topic up, and you always forget because you're always because it's in the personal training books. You learn a little bit more about it, or a little bit about it throughout the training of a personal trainer, but to get deep into something like this, it's pretty crazy. And I bet Laura or you even know that there's probably even more that we're missing, and there's more out there on this process. So that's pretty dope.
Yeah. And I try to kind of break it down and then even my understanding, I think, because I have I have questions myself, which, I'd like to go deeper down the rabbit hole, at some point in my life. But the important things to take from this are, if you hear not many bodybuilders are on keto diets. Many bodybuilders are their diets are very heavy on carbohydrates. Why is that the case? Well, carbohydrates we know has more is able to yield more units of energy per amount. So I believe if the weight is equal, there's more ATP energy stored in a carbohydrate, in the same amount of carbohydrates as there are as the same amount of fat. And that's why you can have a little bit more powerful contractions or powerful workouts, exercising, because it yields a greater amount of ATP molecules. So that just is essentially more potential energy that can be utilized and transferred into kinetic energy or mechanical energy. So that's one important takeaway from that. Another important takeaway is when you're lifting, and let's say you have a goal to be able to bench 135 pounds, and let's say right now you're doing 95 pounds, remember it takes time to build. You're literally building your body to be able to do that. So one of two things is most likely happening if, let's say, you're benching 95 pounds and you can't bench 135 pounds and you want to bench 135 pounds. The amount of force that your actin and myosin filaments are exerting on one another is not sufficient to overcome the force. So you just need more of those filaments. So essentially you need to get more protein. You need to build larger muscles so that you can push bigger weight. So you have the bigger muscle, let's say the bigger muscle hypothesis, or two, neurally, you just aren't activating all the muscle fibers that should be firing at that time. And that this might be a learning process. So for if you're a beginner and you're listening to this, you don't have to know every single step. And if you're interested, go ahead, watch videos, read up on it, that's awesome. But you don't have to at all to become a sufficient lifter. This isn't something I ever think about, except for on rare occasions. But you might just need to train your muscles to become essentially more aware, being able to recruit more of your muscle fibers, because when that electrical impulse travels down a neuron and it stimulates a muscle fiber, that also sends a action potential down the motor unit into the central part of the muscle. And if you're not activating all those muscle fibers to their greatest potential, then you're not able to lift the most amount of weight. And you'll also see this when you get into your intermediate stage. Some days you'll just be able to lift more weight. You'll have no idea why. You're like, last week I did 185 by 10 on bench, and now I'm only able to do 8. Like, what's going on with that? And that could be like some fatigue. So that's why I was talking about, like, okay, fatigue is like starting to get in the way of things. So if that's the case, like I might have like damaged or exhausted some like muscle fibers, like nothing bad, like I'm fine, I'm healthy, but like significantly enough where they're not able to exert their force. So I'm not able to then like translate that weight into the bar. So that's why it's important to keep recovery in mind, and that it's a really important exercise variable, so that when it comes around, you're able to like make sure you like get enough protein, like that the rest of it, like your diet is in check, whether it's like you're gonna be carb heavy, you're gonna be like, I'm gonna try and see if I can do it like keto style, whether like you're getting enough sleep, you're making sure that like you're keeping your stress levels like low and manageable. Like all those are important variables to ensuring that you're able to get progressive overload, and that's facilitated by you be able to recover so that you can overload your system.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, I like how you key it back to like energy when it comes to food, energy when it comes to like utilizing every lift towards like your goal. Like, let's just say you want to grow your biceps, grow your shoulders, grow your quads, grow your hamstrings. I was actually watching, if you guys like go to YouTube and type in RP strength, Mike Isatell has been doing a lot of great, like, I want to say they're less than 7 minutes long, maybe even shorter than that, maybe like less than 5 minutes, but pretty much he went over like a quick video about like her hypertrophy. I think it was more for beginners, but intermediate could probably take a look and get like a refresher. But he always like throws out there, like Roman's saying, like, if your goal is hypertrophy, you want to pick lifts like first that is being effective to that muscle group. You're like Roman was saying with the theory, like you want energy into that muscle group. Also too, like, always be courteous and curious. I don't even know if we talk about it too much, but I mean, I watched the video and it brings me, gives me that new ideas that we don't really talk too much about it. But like low joint stress, like you don't want to do one of those bicep curls. Like say if we always bring why do we always bring up bicep curls? Like we can't think of anything else.
It's
like,
an easy one to like. I think because of like the striation of the bicep as opposed to like the deltoid is actually like rope shaped. So that it's like it can be hard for people to like envisioning that like a rope tightening. So the bicep is like I forget the exact like the form of that muscle, but it's just an easy visualization, I think.
Yeah, so like say if for some reason like if you're not a power lifter and you want to grow your quads and you want to grow your glutes, like in let's just say like squats or like say if some like you just don't see the benefit of squats, you're just like hey, every time I do squats, I don't feel them in my quads. I don't feel them in my glutes. Obviously you could change your stance up, change the way you grip the bar and all that. But like, what if, you did leg extensions and then maybe glute press or hip thrust, and you get hypertrophy in those muscles, you get less sore, you get less joint stress. So that was like one of the things too, like we never really bring up too much joint stress on a particular movement, because if you're getting all that energy and then for some reason like you're doing like let's just say you're doing straight barbell curls. I know Roman's mentioned that before, that he gets wicked like forearm pain, but like for me, like I used to get like wicked like forearm pain and elbow pain when it came to the barbell curls, and it was nice to see, it was a nice bicep pump. But like after the next day or two, you'd get that soreness where like ruins like other lifts throughout your week. So that was like another thing I wanted to bring up throughout what you were saying just now, Roman. So
yeah, No, and then that's brilliant because you're going to hear like certain things. So like starting to learn the basics and then also building upon the basics is going to give you a great foundation because okay, we like use all these like sciencey terms and we did some like extrapolation of how that can apply to different program modalities and program principles. But also at the end of the day, there is an art as well as a science behind working out. So it's about like finding and striking that balance. So a good example, and I hope I don't I don't do a disservice of like explaining the study because it was like actually really cool what I like understand about it. But I believe Chris Bearcat, he does some research, I believe, at in Tampa Bay. I think it's God. I want to say Tampa Bay University, but I don't think it's Tampa Bay University. It's a university.
University of Tampa Bay?
Yeah, it might be University of Tampa Bay. Yeah,
that's where Sam went for a little bit.
That's really cool. Nice. So he's a pretty jacked. I think he's a natural bodybuilder. Definitely check him out if you haven't heard or seen him before. Chris Bearcat. Not sure what his Instagram handle is, but you can probably just type it in the search bar. But the study was looking at the effects of speed on eccentrics, essentially. So we had like a fast eccentric group and then a slow eccentric group. And this was for lower body movements. I'm pretty sure the lower body movements were leg press, leg extensions, and squats. I think they were squats to a box from the video that I saw. And my understanding of the findings were that the fast eccentric group actually had like a slight benefit in hypertrophy. So they like essentially their quad muscles where they were measured at the sites they were measured grew a little bit larger than the slow eccentric group. And I believe volume was equated. Once again, like I didn't take a super deep dive and I'm going off like the top of my head from what I remember about reading about it. And I think he is actively recruiting more people. So check that out if you're in the Tampa Bay area, because it'd just be fun to work out with that group. But so there's a couple things to take note there. So that could be a very real observed effect in the short run. So it could be that faster eccentrics allow for let's say it allows for less damage of the muscle fibers, so quicker recovery. So in the period that was measured, it has a greater effect in that time frame. My experience with faster eccentrics, so that is when the weight is overcoming the lifter essentially. So on a bicep curl, it's the weight down. This is the concentric. This is the eccentric. On a squat, an eccentric is on the way down. On the leg press, it would be as the platform is coming towards you is the eccentric, and on a leg extension, it's as your leg is extended fully. So it's like essentially a straight line, and it starts to go back into a 90. That is what the eccentric portion of the leg extension is. That you can have, I experience like greater joint distress when I have a faster eccentric. Not so much like with the concentric. So you might have greater, let's hypothesize that there's greater muscle damage, that like overcoming that and recovering in the short term is able to speed up your gains. But let's say that joint distress is significant, so much so that it prevents you from being consistent with your workouts. And we know that consistency is like the number one key towards driving progress through like overload, as long as you're like able to recover, of course. So in that case, whereas you might have heard that a faster eccentric might give you greater gains in the short run, you also might surmise that for you, a slower eccentric where you can control the weight much better, you can focus it more on the muscles that you're trying to focus on. Let's say like the lats, for example, which is historically or traditionally like a very like tricky muscle group for especially like beginners to create that mind muscle connection to. And overall that creates greater adherence to the training program for you. Then even though science says like technically like this is like the more hypertrophic procedure, you might choose this other procedure because it's more suited to your style.
Yeah, and that's all you need, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like it's also honoring the role of individuality when it comes to programming.
Very nice, buddy. Well, anything else you want to close this out with?
I think that's everything. Let me make sure I covered everything. There was one thing I wanted to take a note on when it comes to the sliding filament theory. So this was just like a little thing that I was thinking about. So I'll just read it. It says, so this is in regards to like if you are thinking about like mechanical failure and why that happens. My understanding of listening to other people and then my understanding of the sliding filament theory, there's two potential hypotheses why we're like driven towards mechanical failure. And I kind of talked about it before, but this is like the little blurb I wrote. So it's either action potentials are not able to cross the motor unit and make it to the depths of the muscle fibers, essentially like stimulating enough muscle fibers so that they can exert force upon the weight needed to recruit a sufficient amount of actin myosin cross bridges to exert greater force against the object being lifted. So that's like hypothesis one. Or hypothesis two is there's a buildup of metabolites in the muscle fibers, which prevents for the efficient functioning of these filaments. So for example, calcium ions, as you may have heard me mention, have to bind to troponin, which is like a characteristic feature of actin. And that's the conformational change in shape of troponin is what removes the tropomyosin from the actin binding sites, and that's where myosin can jump up. So it's been hypothesized by people like Mike Isertel, for example, which Antoine had talked about from RP, that it may like muscle failure or mechanical failure. So when you can't like lift a weight anymore, you can't perform that last bicep curl. It may be due to like metabolites blocking up those receptor sites, and or it could potentially be a combination of both. But it's just like an interesting last note that I wanted to leave our listeners with to speculate on.
Oh, man, that's great. Always great, buddy. One more thing. You're not done talking. Who do you want to win in the Super Bowl? And then we'll let you go since we are going to be released this 2 days before the Super Bowl.
Sweet. Tampa Bay Bucks.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to see Brady get his 7th. Let's see here. So I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be like within a score. If I were to give a score,
it's going to be what, like 35-42?
I'm thinking 35-31.
Wow. So 4-point win.
Yeah. And I'll go on record saying this. I think it'll be tied 28-28 in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs will kick a field goal to go up, and Tom Brady will have a 2-minute drill, and he'll lead the Bucks down the field, and Godwin will catch the game-winning touchdown.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Who wants to bet him? Someone bet this man. Someone take him off his high horse.
35-31. That's my guess. We'll see. I hope it's a good one.
Yeah, honestly, like, you know what? I like the two contenders, so like I would be happy for either one of them, to be honest. Yeah. Like, I like Tom Brady, I like Gronk, I like Godwin. Godwin's amazing. And then their defense is really good. But yeah, I mean the Chiefs, Mahomes. I mean, dude, they're gonna be. He's gonna be like Tom Brady, bro. He's probably gonna have. Insane. I'm not gonna say that like people say something about like Kobe or Jordan. I'm gonna let it play out. But like if he wins this year, I have a feeling he's gonna get at least 5 rings.
He's gotta be healthy. He's gotta keep himself healthy, man. Because he's got so much heart. Like, man, I have so much respect for Patrick Mahomes, especially like after seeing him. I think it was like two games ago when he like got his like neck jarred. Man, he was like literally putting his like body on the line for his team just to win. And I know like that takes a lot. But it's also important, like, man, you're the quarterback. Like, you need to keep yourself healthy. Like, your team needs you, you know?
Yeah. But anyways, guys, we'll see how that plays out. And then we'll see you guys on the next one. Catch us on all video and audio platforms. Follow us on Instagram, all that good stuff. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.